Happy Black History Month, everybody. Today we'll talk about recording artists' success with a local recording artist, give an update on the opioid issue here in the Capital Region. We'll talk about education, but we'll begin with a conversation about our parish library system. Roll it, Kirk. Well, hopefully you're keeping warm during this 5 days of cold weather before we get back to the warm weather again. We begin today's show with a conversation with Mary Stein with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library System. How are you, my dear?
I am happy to be alive, Clay, and happy to be spreading the good news about the library.
Well, y'all have been front and center in the media the last week or so. So the city parish and some officials inside of the Edwards administration and some members of the Metro Council have been talking about whether or not they should claw back some of the millage dollars that the library system is getting in order to close some holes in the city parish budget. So one of the first things I want to ask about is this news that the deadline was missed for a spring vote and that you guys are going to be looking to get it on the November ballot?
Okay. There's a very prescribed process to get something to the voters.
Okay.
And there are very rigid deadlines for that process. So we could not reach a compromise by this morning at noon to get that on an agenda, to get that introduced at council, to get that, basically you cry the bands on something like that, and you have to wait a whole month before you discuss it. So at this point in time, an October election is off the table for us. We are instead continuing conversations with stakeholders and members of the Metro Council to see if we can achieve a compromise that is a win for everyone for the November election.
So let's talk about the money. That's really been the thing here. I had Councilman Dwight Hudson on the show last week, and then on the podcast I had Daryl Hurst on talking about it, so both sides of the equation. So the conversation has been that you guys have about $114 million kind of tucked away, and that your annual operating budget is around 60 million?
60 to 65, depending on what capital we are drawing down.
Okay.
What is not understood is that we're pay as you go, so you have to get it, save it, and then spend it.
Okay.
So the only way to do this when you're paid once a year is to not wait until the December 31st date to get your paycheck, but to get it at the beginning.
Right.
So that process started 40 years ago. And in fact, we are required by city parish policy to keep one whole year of operating revenue in that fund balance so that we are ready to draw it down when the next year comes. And that's the process that we followed ever since. So we do have a good number in our fund balance. 65 million of that is the next year's operating budget.
Okay.
And that leaves a couple million for insurance because we're self-insured, and you hope to never spend that, but we have it in case we need it. And then the other 26 million is the savings that we have acquired drip, drip, drip over the years for the new capital projects, the capital projects that are coming down the pike. We have an aging library system. People go to our facilities, they say they're beautiful. Well, we try our best to maintain them, but all of the libraries in the northern part of the parish were built before we were using the internet.
Yeah.
And it's their turn.
Well, the system itself is over 90 years old, is that correct?
The system itself is 85 years old and counting.
Okay.
That's right.
So what is your argument to people who say the library system is getting too much money?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that the citizens of East Baton Rouge Parish chose 40 years ago to tax themselves so that they could be assured of the stability for a competent library system, a library system that offered fair service throughout the parish, not just at one location, a library system that was open 7 days a week at every library, including the smallest library we have, that replaced all the facilities, and whatever is the new and best new thing, we try to integrate that into the whole system. So the public not only voted themselves this tax, but they continue to approve this tax every 10 years, and they are using the library system. Business was up 2.9% as far as gate count coming in through the door. The circulation was up 2.9%. The way people are using our meeting rooms, our program attendance, the Wi-Fi use is out the roof. We blew the roof on the Wi-Fi use, and people are still coming in to use the special services, the Career Center, Small Business Service, the Early Literacy Program, and then for the other end of the spectrum, genealogy assistance, special collections, all that requires stable funding.
Alyssa, give me another minute with Mary. I want to talk about the working relationship between you and Mayor Edwards. People have said that the discussions have been amicable on both sides, that it's been a fairly civil dialogue. Is that the way it's been? We've
had a cordial discussion with the mayor the day before he announced that this would be happening to us in his alternative proposal, which is so confusing for people. They're like, wait, what? You already had a proposal. What's this new proposal? That new proposal undedicates the library's funds, basically allows everything that's been previously amassed to be used for other purposes, which was not voted on by the public. And there's other questions that people are bringing to us. We met that one time with the mayor. The chief administrative officer, Charlie Davis, came to the special board meeting that the library held last night, open meeting, public was there, totally transparent, and it was a very cordial conversation at the table. But we're not getting a compromise.
Do you feel like the meeting that happened last week pit the library system against law enforcement with so many cops in the room? Was that an inadvertent optical mishap?
That was so unfortunate. People were, I'm still hearing from people who felt intimidated. They were sad that it looks like we're pitting the library against the police. That is not our goal at all.
Right.
In fact, we already have an appointment to speak to the chief because we work with the police. We work with the sheriff's deputies, the constables. The police were there with us at the warming center, as were these other law enforcement officers.
I know you want to work it out. Listen, as this goes on, could we get you to come back and keep talking with us?
Absolutely. Because the people need to know what makes a healthy democracy is an informed public, and you guys are helping to lead the charge on that.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, up next, should the Department of Education federally be abolished? That's a discussion happening in Washington, D.C. We'll talk about that next. And here's where you can find me on social media. Appreciate the emails from those looking to get on the show. We see you. Well, it's our education spotlight, talking with Adonica Duggan with the Baton Rouge Alliance for Students here. And before we get into conversations about things here in the parish, I'd like to talk about this dialogue that's happening in Washington about getting rid of the Federal Department of Education. I watched a little bit of nominee McMahon's interview or confirmation hearing with senators about that, and it came up. What's your take on that? It wouldn't get rid of state DOEs. It would just get rid of the federal office.
You know, I think what's really concerning about it is the chaos that it creates at a local level and at a state level, not knowing how dollars will flow.
Okay.
I think that whatever happens, we will navigate the environment as it exists. We have an amazing Louisiana Department of Education under Dr. Cade Brumley, and I think that they'll continue to do what's right for students, but I do think it creates a lot of uncertainty for local school districts and even for the state. And so I think that what we want to see is what are the plans for how funding will flow? What will this mean for students who have IEPs? What will this mean for 504 plans? What will this mean for federal funding for targeted interventions in underserved communities? There's just a lot of unanswered questions, but I think whatever happens, a lot of the decisions around public education are made at a state and local level. So
I'm unsure if at the federal level you could do that without the support of Congress.
Yeah,
and so again,
that's for much smarter people than
me.
And
that's the thing. It's like trying to figure out like what is and isn't possible with doing it. I'm always in favor of more dollars getting to classrooms and getting to kids, no matter what the machination is. We got to get more money into the school system. Superintendent Cole was here a few weeks back, and we talked about how the district has a nearly billion a year annual operating budget when you do the federal drawdown and everything. And his take was it should be $2 billion because with that kind of money you could actually pay teachers. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against that, right?
That's right. I mean, I think that we know that the people who make decisions best for kids are the people who are closest to them. And so having those resources more concentrated at a local level could, if that's the way it shook out, actually benefit kids. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and we'll have to sort through what that looks like. But I do think that, eliminating layers of bureaucracy in terms of, making sure that people who are closest to children make the best decisions for them. I think that concentrating those resources in school districts and letting the decision makers at local levels make those decisions is really important.
Talk to me about this situation with the charter in Baker.
Yeah, really unfortunate situation. I think that there's a lot of investigation still going on. I think that the Louisiana Department of Education and the Legislative Auditor's Office have a lot left to uncover. But I think that, this underscores the importance of good oversight of all public dollars and making sure that the people who sit on nonprofit boards understand what their role is and understand what level of oversight they should be having. And I think that, it's really unfortunate, and we want to make sure that those resources are doing what they were designed to do, which is serve students and not serve, other interests.
There is so much controversy always around charters. There are people who are just going to be anti-charter no matter what.
That's right.
And this feeds that skepticism about the efficacy of charters.
And I think that, great people, regardless of school type, wake up and serve kids well in all types of schools, in traditional district schools, in non-public schools, in public charter schools. And I think that, one bad apple should not be a reflection of an entire set of schools that are doing great work serving kids. And I think that this is unfortunate. I think that if things shake out and allegations are true, that the people involved should be prosecuted or whatever remedy there is. But I think that the outcomes for kids remain most important and have to be centered in how we're having this conversation.
Well, and it's just regardless charter, traditional, public, that's horrible.
Yeah. It really is. It's unfortunate. And, we see, people taking advantage of situations in nonprofits, in public school systems, in public, in state agencies. And I think it's always unfortunate, particularly when tax dollars are used in ways that they aren't intended. And so I think this is something that we have to get to the bottom of and that we have to hold people accountable for.
Alyssa, how much time do I have? 30 seconds. Okay, grade where we are right now with the school system's handling of charters overall.
I think that we've seen a real improvement under Lamont Cole. I think that he comes from both a charter and a district background, and so he understands the role of all schools in serving kids. I think he's done a great job of naming that regardless of where families choose to be, every kid who is in East Baton Rouge Parish is his responsibility to educate. Even if you send your kids to a Catholic school, it's his responsibility to ensure that all kids are well educated. And I think that that's really an important step forward for our city as we think about all of the schools that serve our kids.
Kills it every time. Education Spotlight once a month. Adonica Duggan. She'll be back next month, maybe even next week with this podcast that we're working on. We're working on that right now. Up next, let's talk about the opioid issue in the capital region with Dr. Jan Laughinghouse. She's here in studio next. And you can catch the show every Friday. It streams on the app in the morning, on television at night, right there at 7 o'clock, replaying Saturdays at 3 p.m. Well, one of my favorite people, Dr. Jan Laughinghouse, is here with Capital Area Behavioral Health, and there's so much going on over there. I first want to start with an introduction. It's not something that most people interact with in their regular lives. So let's talk about what your organization is and what it does.
Absolutely. So Capital Area Human Services is actually a political subdivision in Louisiana, and that simply means that there were state offices that used to perform functions, but we were established in 1996, developed in 1997 in Region 2, which serves 7 parishes, and that would be East and West Baton Rouge, East and West Feliciana, Iberville, Ascension, and Point Coupee. And so we operate under the auspices of the Louisiana Department of Health, and we have a memorandum of understanding with them, and by law we have to provide mental health, addictive disorders treatment, including prevention, developmental disorders as well.
So we had a conversation about where we are. Opioids have been a topic of discussion at the governmental level really a lot since COVID, more so since COVID.
Absolutely.
Where are we with that crisis right now?
Well, with the crisis, we still have too many deaths. Hiller Moore's office did a presentation with the press club on January 6th, and so we have seen a reduction in the number of opioid deaths, but the number is still too high. Any number is tragic, and we are losing too many family members and community members, and we still need to continue to stem that tide.
What do you attribute that spike to?
I attribute the spike to a couple of things. The spike would be due to the presence of fentanyl, and that is a synthetic opioid analog that's in every drug now. Even when people think they are buying legitimate medications online, those medications can actually have fentanyl in them, which is why the DEA has that campaign that they do, one pill can kill. And also with the pandemic that we had, the things that actually keep people healthy, connection, community, being able to communicate and gather together, we had to stop doing those things for a while. So we saw anxiety and depression, those rates increase. We also saw that people were trying to medicate themselves. We saw drinking and substance use go up among people not only who already had the issues, but among people who never had the issues before.
How can people who may be in crisis or have issues going on get in contact with you or find out about the services you provide?
Absolutely. They can contact us on the phone by dialing 225-925-1906, or they can reach us on the web at realhelpbr.com.
I got about a minute left. Just talk a little bit about the mental health issues that we are seeing play out on the streets of our communities.
Well, the mental health issues, as I said before, they were exacerbated during the pandemic because people were socially isolated, anxious, fearful, so rates of anxiety, rates of depression, and some people already had issues that were pre-existent that were undiagnosed, so they were exacerbated during that time. And also people, let's say for example, our teachers or the people ringing up groceries at Walmart who never thought that they would have to face life and death going to work every day. You know, our police officers.
Nurses, doctors.
Exactly. Exactly. And unless you were a medic in the Army, going to be a doctor to help somebody who's sick, you never think about your own mortality. And so having to grapple with that in the course of doing your job, nothing prepared us for it.
Look, I want you to, I don't want you to be a stranger here, Jan. I want you, because I want to be able to talk about what's happening in our community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you do.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jan Laughing Out. She's good people, y'all. All right, talking about good people, up next we're going to talk with a brother who is the epitome of talent. He's a good father. He's on our set with us. And I'm telling you what, I met him, well, this is when I was doing this thing somewhere else the first time we talked. And I said, I got to get him back in here to reintroduce him. And that's from the music video for the song Fatherhood, one of my favorites. We'll talk with Matt Johnson. He's on the set, y'all. He's there at the Mega right now. There he is, right there. Wave at the camera, brother. Back to talk with him in just a moment. Before we get into the last segment, I want to remind you to check out the C-Suite podcast. It's at WAFB.com. You can get it on the WAFB app. Currently, right now, the show features a conversation with Councilman Darrell Hurst. Next week, on location at the Colonel's Club. How about that? Now I'm back with my brother, Matt Johnson, goes by the rap name Sick of Sin. We can't move too much because the camera police over in Master Control will get on us if we move. How's it been, brother?
Man. Blessed and busy.
So let's talk about getting into music and then choosing that genre of music.
Yeah. So originally I was a secular rap artist. I was signed to a secular rap label at the age of 14. I ended up getting saved, gave my life to God at the age of 25. And that's kind of whenever I turned things around. I used to go by the name Young Sicker when I was in the world. And then when I got saved, I was like, well, God, what do I call myself now? And he was like, you sick of sin, ain't you? And so that's kind of where Sick of Sin comes from.
So tell me about that journey, because those are two different ends of the spectrum.
It was, I was lost. I was lost for a long time in my life. I glorified sex, money, and drugs in my lyrics and in my lifestyle. And just I was just going down a bad path in life. I just didn't know who I was and whose I was, and it wasn't until God just finally called me and brought me in that I realized what I was supposed to do with my gift, and that's to bring life to the city.
Yeah.
That's to bring love, and that's to represent God.
So you have an event coming up in April. We'll talk about closer to the event, but it's one of the things that you do. It's Pizza and Prayers.
Yes,
Tell me
sir.
about that.
Yes, sir. So April 25th and 26th, we're having the Pizza and Prayers block party. On the 25th and on the 26th, we're having a benefit concert.
Okay.
It's going to be crazy. The block party is going to be at Evangeline Street Park. It's going to be a big blowout concert. We're going to have giveaways, TVs, bikes, cash giveaways, live music, bouncy houses. And then on Saturday, we're doing the benefit concert at the Independence Theater on April 26th, and that's just this big gospel explosion concert with amazing gospel singers, Christian rappers. It's just an amazing, amazing event, amazing weekend.
I love this, man. What's your motivation to someone who wants to get into music but do it the way that you're doing it, and do Christian rap or Christian R&B or whatever? What would be your advice to them?
I would say, you know, life is about purpose. And whenever you're thinking about getting into music, you definitely want to have purpose. And while you may not be on the Christian rap tip, I encourage you to at least speak positivity, speak life. It's too much talk about death and murder going on. And music is so influential to the youth.
Yeah, it is.
So the things that we say really matter. So I encourage people to just speak life and speak positivity.
So we already put him on the spot that he's going to have to do a benefit concert at the Inspiration Center, because this time next year it'll be open. In fact, it's slated to be open this fall and around October.
Man,
so
major congratulations, man.
Look,
That's
teamwork
huge.
makes the dream work.
Wow,
man.
that's huge.
And that's been really the way it's gone. But I'm proud of what you do, your success, and as much as you are in the community, because so few of our kids have positive examples and role models around them, and a number of them are into the wrong thing because they don't have anybody modeling the right thing. Right.
Yeah.
So how can people contact you, learn more about you? Tell them quickly. I got less than 30 seconds.
So Instagram, that's Sicka_Sin, SICKA_Sin. Facebook, Matt Sicka Sin Johnson. Website, sickasinmusic@gmail.com.
Right there. All right. Appreciate you. Listen, I mentioned the C-Suite. Actually, the episode that's going to drop Monday will be with Ted James. The one in the following Monday is going to be from Colonel's Club. Alyssa, you got that picture? Congratulations, Heidi. A little bit getting an award. There she is. Y'all have a great weekend. Stay warm.